especially political personalities, for a lot of different reasons.
So I'm just imagining things.
You're wishful thinking, perhaps, yes.
Yeah, well, of course.
Yeah.
But did you mention anywhere in the web, does it mention anywhere in the web bots that there will be some kind of disappearance of people?
This is a continuing meme, and we expect a flush of it, so to speak. But again, it'll be occurring in the period in which there will be a great deal of chaos. So it'll be perhaps difficult to determine exactly what's going on at any given point with any level of surety from, say, the end of February onward, in the sense that even the independent media might be breaking down. We just don't know what the issues are going to be relative to even Internet coverage as the economic problems become much worse over winter. Then as I say, there's the push towards a different expression of the revolutionary meme here in the U.S., which may reach up to the point of a general strike, may bring a strike against the IRS. I have no way of knowing, but it's going to be relatively massive over late spring and into summer. During that period of time, there is indeed this whole continuing disappearances sort of thing. I'm hoping it's not like the dirty war in Argentina where 30,000 innocent people were disappeared by the government. It appears that it's rather the other way, that fractional infighting as well as actual enemies rising up out of the giant crowd of the populace will indeed pressure the powers that be to the point where they'll get real paranoid and start walking around with lots of bodyguards. And I'm talking to the point where you see them in public, it'll be noticeable that they're surrounded by, a dozen individuals, that sort of thing.
Wow. Now, I heard another rumor on the Internet that the World Bank was going bust, that they were getting broke. Now, is that even possible?
Sure. Actually, it's probable. It's predetermined. It must occur. And that's because the World Bank is really a creature of our Congress. It's not a World Bank, just as the Federal Reserve Bank is not part of the federal government, has no reserves, and is not really a bank.
Right.
So you have to understand, the Department of Defense wages war. It does not defend against anything. The Department of Education does not do anything other than school. It does not educate.
Right.
The government's primary function is to lie to you. The media's total function is to support the establishment no matter what. So they repeat the lies.
And then the FDA is just an arm of the pharmaceutical manufacturers.
Correct.
Who present their own testing to the FDA and they rubber stamp it.
Yeah, and besides, you see evidence of this when they're trying to figure a way to engineer out the placebo effect.
Yeah.
So that their tests will look a lot better. And it's like, whoa.
Jeez.
And their goal, but you're correct, the FDA's goal is to promote the profits of the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah. Oh, it's all so corrupt. It just everywhere you look, there's nowhere you can look that it isn't. While we still have a few minutes, I'm just going to turn you loose, and what would you like to share with the listeners about what you know or feel or would like to talk about?
Boy, well, there's just so much.
Yeah.
I guess the thing to do is to look at everything from an entirely local perspective. You get up in the morning and you start your day with coffee. Okay, well, how soon will the coffee supplies last? As the dollar degrades, what will you have to pay for that? You proceed on, you're going to put salt on your breakfast. Well, okay, salt, etc. Start looking at all your commodities and seeing what you can effectively store and what you can't. Because some of these things are going to start disappearing or they're going to escalate in price, especially those things that relate to food and energy. We're seeing it in a fashion that is very similar to what happened to Rome when the Roman Empire collapsed. But because Rome didn't have instant communications and digital anything, their collapse took 50, 80 years, whereas will take maybe as little as 50, 80 days to go through these major hurdles. And it will be magnified by the instant communications. So, for instance, we now know that there is massive food problems on a famine scale for India, such that they've had to make major changes to their tax structure. Bear in mind, governments hate that. Will do anything to avoid that.
Yeah.
So they are reacting. The fact that they're reacting this rapidly is another indication as to how bad it's going to be there. This is akin to the empire falling apart at the edges, which is how this always occurs. And it'll always go back to the rot at the center, and unfortunately that's where we all live. Now, there's still some level of time to respond to circumstances and, get yourself in a slightly better position to weather them, but there's no way to avoid them, in my opinion.
Yeah. It seems that the smart people, at least as far as I can tell, are, paying off their land or buying a piece of land that they can live on and grow some vegetables. And, in fact, I opened up a whole new half an acre of vegetable growing area due to the fact that the pine beetle had killed all the pine trees and they had to be taken down. So now I can grow my own vegetables because of global warming. The beetles just chomped them down until they were all just like kindling. And I hear that's going on all over America.
The forests are in terrible shape that way, yeah.
And the coral reefs, and then the dead...
Well, in the Pacific Northwest here, we've got the issue of the oysters aren't spawning for, the fourth year in a row, but we're having a staggering response of salmon. It's like, all of a sudden salmon has come back and crabs are coming back. However, both of those are actually benefiting from a short-term increase in the food supply at their particular levels due to the death of all kinds of other species within the ocean. So it's not a particularly a good situation. We have mass, twice the size of Texas out in the Pacific Ocean of microfine plastic that's been accumulating and is starting to get into the food chain.
Oh, yeah. And then pharmaceuticals are getting into the water.
Yeah.
Not to mention, there's the mercury problem. Which is
and then you go back to the glaciation and or the lack thereof, and the issues with Antarctica and so on.
Yeah.
So it's part and parcel of the times. The times are not what we would call normal. The idea that you could live in the world being presented by the propagandists from the television strikes me as a little precarious.
Oh, absolutely. It seems like it's just barely holding on to its ability to even function as a, it's just so out of touch that it seems that it's going to collapse real soon. And of course, if there's a financial collapse, then all those companies will be thinking twice about advertising on television, programming will be cut, and blah, blah, blah.
Well, and then you have electricity issues and the hyperinflation. The hyperinflation will be the death knell for the social infrastructure. And that'll hit on levels, as you say, in advertising, but also such things as the importation of oil for diesel, for driving trains to haul coal in order to make electricity, so the electrical grid suffers. We're already having a collapse of the food supplies at the oceanic level. Pretty soon that collapse will hit us at the grain level. So, it's kind of like I say, back to it local again. If you like bread, maybe you need to figure out a way to store the stuff. If you actually look at it, you can store wheat berries from which flour can be made. Those can store for 10 years and still maintain their nutritional value without a whole lot of work. And then if you wanted to go to the work of shoving nitrogen into a sealed bucket of the grain, you can store them nutritionally for maybe 15 years without a whole lot of work. Whereas you can't really store flour. Flour goes bad.
It does go bad, yeah.
Yeah, and so you start reappraising your whole idea of what's sustainable and what isn't, because you've got to get through the hard times. And then there's the issue of sustainability on the other side of that. So how can I provide, in the sense of, growing vegetables to be able to provide the vitamins I need under the circumstances? And then, of course, there's the weird issues that our parents never had to deal with. It's like, are chemtrails good for my garden? Should I allow my broccoli to be covered by that stuff? I don't think so. Which means you now got to start having, container gardens in your own backyard, but they're reversed because they're containers to keep stuff out.
Right.
And that's what I've done. I've got a bunch of cold frames that, are built with local lumber and plastic tops, and then I've got my grow dome, and basically so I don't have to worry about the food I'm going to consume being polluted.
I'm considering doing the same thing because there are times, not always, but there are times when my lungs just start hacking until I feel like I'm going to turn inside out.
Yeah.
And I attribute that directly to the atmosphere above falling.
Well, and it's barium and aluminum. And other material, cadmium, 101 parts per million. In Phoenix, cadmium, you shouldn't breathe it at 1 part per million.
Right.
And, and it's all these heavy metals stay in your system. Now you have to start learning to breathe deeply, periodically. I would recommend that people who are interested in this go look up PACE, P-A-C-E. It's a progressive cardio program developed by this Dr. Spears. The mechanisms involved are very akin to what are practiced in the martial arts. So it's these heart and lung strengthening exercises that basically help you breathe in the lower abdomen, which helps you shed all these heavy metals. Not that aluminum's particularly heavy, but cadmium and barium certainly are. And aluminum, of course, is associated with Alzheimer's.
Oh, well.
Or dementia in general. Yeah, so the world is quite strange, and reaction to it anymore. It's like there's actually this thing in the whole science of yoga that's kind of cool. The book goes along and it says, it's warning you, and it's kind of doing this little Yoda thing saying, now watch out, there are these various traps when you're set off on the path of enlightenment. And one of the traps is that you'll be walking along and you'll slip back into what's known as the doshas, or humor or view of the world that you used to have. In other words, you're walking along, everything's fine, and you think, why was I must have been really crazy to think that this New World Order and all of that business. And then it's like, oh, oops, wait a second. What's that up in the sky? Oh, yeah, that's right. The biggest giant conspiracy on the planet and right in front of my face. Yeah, all that other stuff is true. Better get back to it,
Yeah. Very good, very good. Well, Clif, we've come to the end of an hour, and it's just, I always love talking to you. You are just so great. You've got it.
Yeah, I can sling the the BS with the best of them. But it's great talking to you, Guy. It's very, very, very nice, very pleasant.
It's a lot of fun, and you always bring some wisdom to it and a little levity, too, which I like. Would you tell people how they can get your report? I highly recommend it because it's inexpensive, and it is 50 pages of extremely interesting and disturbing information.
Very disturbing stuff, but you can go to halffasthuman.com and click on the Buy Now button and buy it, or you can mail us a check, but if you send a check, be sure and send an email address with it, or we'll get very, very irritated. Because then we have to track you down,
And you won't get any pie.
That's correct, no pie for you.
All right. Well, I thank you very much, Clif, and I can't wait to have you back again because you're always so much fun.
Sure, we'll do this in a little bit here. I've got to get to work on the next series of reports, and so I'll be, head down for a while. But when I pop it up again like a meerkat, I'll see if I can find you.
All right, and I'll be watching for you on some of the other radio shows because they're all you're just doing. I love listening to you on all of them. So, of course.
Well, thanks much. Like I say, I sure don't understand it. You need to find something better to do.
But I know. I'm going to return to writing another book. So.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, you won't be hearing from me as much then.
Okay, cool.
All right, Clif, thanks a million, and best of luck with that project, and keep in touch.
Okay, we'll talk to you. Bye.
All righty. Good night, everybody.
Hi.